All right, YouTube. How's everybody doing? This is going to be the part 6 update of the truck camper build. I'll give you guys a quick update of where I am, future plans, and cover a few of the technical things I've done in the past week. So, as I recall from the last video, I still had to install the trim and actually lay the fiberglass on the roof, but I had put on the plywood on the roof. So this week I laid the fiberglass on the roof and put the trim on. And as those who've seen the other videos and you're looking, you could probably immediately recognize some of the trim pieces that I put on. So let's talk about the roof first. I had, way back when I was a kid, I had briefly worked at a boat shop and had a little bit of experience with fiberglass, but only in my last camper project did I do it on my own. And then, of course, I laid some glass in this project. Some of you watching this may be very familiar with fiberglass. I think we've all probably heard of it, but some of you may not know exactly what it is in the process. So basically, in short though, fiberglass is you take some sort of cloth. So this is a woven cloth, and they measured the thickness of it in what's called ounces. I don't know exactly how they derive what, but excuse me, the heavier the ounce, or the higher the ounce rating, the thicker and stronger the cloth is. So this is a 6 ounce, which is a pretty strong cloth. And then what you do is you would essentially, this is not meant to be a tutorial on how to do it, but just kind of give you an idea. There's plenty of good videos out there on YouTube, but you would essentially lay this particular cloth out, let it relax and kind of form to the shape of what you're going to bond it to. So in my case, the roof. And then you essentially mix up some kind of a resin. They have epoxy resins and a polyester resin. I ended up using a polyester resin, and to activate the resin, you have to add a hardener at a certain ratio. And a lot of times there's not a huge working time with that, so you would have your cloth cut and pre-laid out to the size that you would want. And then in this case, I was bonding the fiberglass to the plywood of the roof. You would roll on a layer of the resin, and then you would place the mat over the top and roll on another layer of resin. And then essentially you would want to saturate it and roll out any air bubbles or bumps or things like that. Let me show you, what it looks like here. It does kind of amber fiberglass, but it generally creates a relatively clear, you can see the wood underneath. Now, some of you might be familiar. Those look like air bubbles. They're not. I had used some automotive Bondo in a few spots on here to, smooth out some of the areas. Bondo's typically a little cheaper than a wood filler, and it sands well, and it's easy to work. But this is kind of what it looks like. You can kind of see the texture of the cloth. Now, I will say air bubbles are a problem when you're bonding fiberglass to wood or any other surface, and it's definitely something that you want to correct. Doing the roof on this was a pretty big surface, and I did have a few minor air bubbles here and there. I'm gonna go up there and sand those out and add reinforce with the second layer of the woven cloth in a few spots. But in a very brief summary, that's kind of how you do it, and that's how I did it. And the benefit of the fiberglass, particularly using woven cloth like this, is twofold. I mean, one, it creates a waterproof barrier, which is, of course, what we want for a roof. But number two is it adds a significant amount of structural strength. In my situation, the plywood I used with all the supports underneath was essentially strong enough as it stood. But when I laid the fiberglass and it hardened up, I mean, it definitely, that was, that roof is rock solid. I mean, I could stand up there and walk around and, move around on my knees, and there's no flex at all. So that turned out you know, to have that dual purpose and have a real benefit there. So let's talk about the trim. So what I essentially did was I ran trim around the entire perimeter of the camper, and I went ahead and added these cross pieces. The trim application was almost exclusively cosmetic. It closed up some of the ingrain that was present here, and the cross pieces were solely cosmetic. Though, you know, they technically would provide some structural strength to the camper, which is a good thing. I mean, in my case, I don't think it was necessary. I think the thing was pretty good as it stood, but we went from there. I normally wouldn't have went with the cross pieces, other than the fact that I'll give you guys another view here. Other than the fact that the window is going to be a traditional, let me pull out one here. It's going to be a traditional RV window. Let me put this in here. It's a little dusty, sorry about that. There we go. Sorry guys. So the window that's going to be in here is a traditional RV window. So it's going to have, you know, this black frame. You know, what I would have liked to have done is had a nice frame around a window, you know, with this wood to kind of, you know, add that cabin feel. But I just didn't think there was a way I could really do it with this and it to look and work right. So I did want to go with these traditional RV windows because I was just hoping that they, you know, they're tempered glass. You know, they're made for RVs, and you know, I just thought I'd give it a shot, see how they worked. But so putting in the you know, kind of the trim pieces across the body of it, I was hoping would kind of still fulfill that aesthetic of you know, kind of an older structure. So you know, let me know what you guys think. I mean, I'm not going to change it at this point. If I were to try to rip those off, it would probably cause some damage. But I think it was a little bit of a gamble, but I like it, and I think it'll add a little style and flair to the camper. If you guys are real astute, you'll note that this trim piece, and including the one up here, so essentially the vertical ones, cant outwards a little bit. So they're thinner at the bottom, and then they cant out in the front. And again, that was another style feature that I incorporated. I think it's best illustrated back here. So I think we talked about this last week, but this has a slight overhang. It's about 3 inches. But if you guys look right here, you can see that the trim piece tapers down. And I, of course, added this little extra trim piece here just to give it a little style. I thought that was nice. And I essentially did something very similar in the front. So if you kind of look, you can see where it tapers down. And then the front cap here, you know, is trimmed out. So on a whole, I was very pleased with how the trim turned out. I think it's going to look nice. So from here, this weekend, the next couple days, my main plan is like I said, I need to rough up the fiberglass top. There's a few spots that I need to fix, and a few places that I want to lay a little bit more of the woven cloth to reinforce a few things. The outside, I'm done with the trim. I've given it a pretty good initial sanding. I'm going to go through and touch up a little bit more sanding, but from there, it's going to be putting the finish on the outside on the wood portions of the camper, and putting the gel coat on the top. And if you're not familiar with gel coat, it's essentially a thick pigmented resin, very similar to the resin used for the fiberglass itself, and that will add color to the top and an additional layer of waterproofing. Once those two things are done, gel coat on top and the finish applied to the outside, essentially the outside of the camper will be finished. Once the finish dries and I get all the coats on, I'll put on the windows. That's a pretty quick install though. And I'll consider that being phase 1 complete. And then phase 2 will be building out the interior of the camper. I'll still have to build the door, but I'm not going to build or install the door until later because I think I'm going to keep the camper in the garage for most of the interior build. And I don't want the door flopping around and being in my way. So it's exciting, guys. We're essentially done with phase 1, and I think we're moving into phase 2, and we're just we're not even at 2 months yet. We're just rolling up on 2 months here, in a couple, just under a week. So I think we're making great progress, and I'm pleased. I think for me, there's though I had some general ideas of what this would look like, it essentially always, there's certain aspects of it that kind of come alive as you build it, and I like it. One last thing I need you guys' help on. So today I took the kids out hiking out in the desert, and I ran across, they had 3 pallets out there that God knows how long they've sat out there. And I hope this video is picking it up, that these have a beautiful patina, just a beautiful gray patina on them from sitting out in the desert for God knows how long. So I got the better half of 3 pallets worth of this wood, which includes the thicker cross pieces, and then excuse me, and then some of the the standard thinner load-bearing parts. I know it's a little challenging because you guys don't know what my plan is for the interior, and I'll admit I know the floor, the layout, and where I'm going to put things, but I have not deciphered exactly like what things I'm going to paint, or there's still some areas that are open for imagination. But I saw this wood. I kind of like the idea of reusing things, not to mention the fact I thought it was beautiful, and it's pretty hard to get wood like this and to mimic this level of weathering. So I figured I'd collect it and maybe try to incorporate it into the interior of the camper. I thought it might have a nice aesthetic. I probably don't have enough to do, certainly not everything. It would be maybe just a few small components, or maybe one wall or something, or I don't know. But hey, guys, give me some thoughts and ideas about what would be some good uses of this wood. This is perhaps one of the worst sets in terms of it's kind of a little bit more bowed and splintered. Some of the other ones were actually relatively straight, but they did have a similar patina. So, and then this one's this piece is probably 1/2 inch, but I also have some thicker pieces. So let me know what you guys think about ideas for the camper, and just some, again, guys, I really do appreciate your comments about what you guys think of the progress, and any ideas that you might have, and I appreciate you guys' time and viewership. Thanks a bunch.